Hello, Barry. How are you today? I hope you had a good day. Today I'd like to show you a couple of things about how to figure out the volume of prisms. Okay, so first of all, let's look at the idea of prism. Prism is a three-dimensional shape. Okay, so that means it's a shape in the real life that it has identical opposite polygons. Okay, it's a really complicated names, but it just basically means identical means the same. They have the same shapes, the same ends. Okay, and then we just stack them together. Now, for example, if I can have a stack of sandwich, so each sandwich is going to be a triangle. Okay, a triangle. And if I stack another one on top of that, then I'll have another triangle. Okay, excuse my horrible drawing. If I keep stacking, okay, if I keep stacking the same triangle, I should get a three-dimensional shape, which looks a little bit like that. Okay, so this is the idea of a prism. Okay, so it has the same ends, which is a triangle, and this one is like a same triangle at the bottom. Okay, so we call the prisms, we name it according to the shape of their cross sections. The word cross sections means the same side that got stacked upon. So for example, in the first one we look at, this one is called a triangular prism. Why is that the case? It's because the cross section, the same side here, is a triangle. So we call that a triangular prism. Now, this one, as you can imagine, would be a rectangular prism. It's because the base or the cross section of that is a rectangle. And the next one is called a hexagon prism. The word hex basically means six. So hexagon means the shape that has six sides. So if we count, that will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So this is called a hexagon, and that is the base or the cross section of this prism. So we call this a hexagon prism. Okay, so these are some examples. Now, of course, we want to talk about a little bit details. Okay, so we want to be able to figure out the volume of this three-dimensional shape. Now, there are many important reasons why do I need to figure out the volume. First of all, if I know the volume, then I will know that how heavy it will be. I can sort of calculate the weight based on the material it used. So sometimes we'll do the calculation based on that point. Okay. Now another reason for calculating the prisms, the volume of the prism, is to make sure we understand how much and how many um, things. For example, if we want to pour the water in a jar, we want to figure out how much water can we pour into that jar. Well, of course, I understand it's very unlikely for us to have a triangular prism for the jar, but as you always know, math is always starting from a bit crazy ideas. Let's keep going. So when we figure out the volume of the prism, we need to use the formula which says the volume equals to the area times height. So A stands for area and then H stands for height. Okay, so the area we're referring to the area of this cross section. And the height is, of course, the height, the vertical distance from the edge to the bottom. Okay, so that's the height. It's the same distance here, same distance here, and same distance here. They're all referring to as height. So we can figure out the volume by using the area times height. Okay, now one thing to notice is that we don't always use the base. The base means the bottom one, right? Sometimes we need to look a bit more carefully. So for example, in the prism on the right hand side, we will need to use this part, the shaded part, as our cross section. Okay, because the bottom of the prism is sort of like a rectangle, but on the top of that, we don't see the same rectangle. So it's not a prism in this way. The cross section should be the triangles because we have a triangle on the left hand side, we have a triangle on the right hand side. This triangle is called the cross section. So therefore we will have, again, the volume will be equal to the area times the height. Okay, let's look at some numbers as detailed example. All right, so for example, if I have this triangular prism, okay, so as you can probably see, the cross section or the area is this triangle at the bottom. Okay, so the area. Now, the area is a triangle, so we may work this out by saying the area of a triangle is a half times the base by height, which is the two information given to us, 7 and 8. Now, if we do the calculation, okay, so sometimes it will be easier to do a half times 8 first, okay? So a half times 8 will give us 4, and then we can multiply 7, and in this way, we will get 28. Now remember, for the area, we will need to have the unit, which is centimeters square. Okay, now we can figure out the volume by using the area times the height. The area we just figure out, that is 28. And the height, according to the image, that is our height here. So the height is 12. Okay, so if you do have a calculator, you can sort of plug this number into the calculator and you'll be able to see the result. Now, for this lesson, I am going to be your calculator. So it's going to be 336. Now, when we write the unit, when we are writing the unit about the volume, we need to write the centimeters cube. Okay, so the square is for the area and the cube is for the volume. Did you get this one right? Okay, so I'd like you to have a go with these two questions. Okay, so you can pause the video here and discuss maybe with Fiona if she is sitting with you. So you can talk about these two questions and to work on them. Okay. Now, when you are ready, you can move on to the next bit and then resume this video. Okay, I hope you're ready at this point. Now, let's have a look at the next part. Okay, so this is another example. So this looks like a brick or like a wooden block. Okay, so one thing you will notice is that it has a 0.5, a little bit decimal points. Okay, a little bit decimal points here. So this is not good. We don't like decimals and then make the calculation very, very tricky. Now, what can we do? The first thing you can think about is we can convert them to a different unit. For example, if we convert the centimeters to millimeters, then we'll need to multiply everything by 10. And in this way, we can get rid of those nasty little decimal points. So for example, if we want to convert 1.5 centimeters to a millimeter, then we know by times 10 we get 15 millimeters. And same way here, if we have 2 centimeters, we can convert that to millimeters as well. We will have 20 millimeters. And then last of all, instead of saying 2.5 centimeters, we can put 25 millimeters. Okay, so in this case, we can then figure out the volume. Okay, there's a bit quicker way to calculate that. The trick is you just need to multiply all these three numbers together. But we'll see why is that the case. So let's just say if we figure out the cross-section area first, the shaded one at the bottom. All right, you have to see this in a more three-dimensional point. The bottom one should actually be a rectangle. So to figure out that, we just need to use 20 millimeter times 15. millimeters. And if we do the calculation, we know that's 300 millimeters squared. Okay, and then remember our formula again. The volume is equal to area times height. And the height here is 25 millimeters. So we just need to have 300 times 25. So which will give us, I'm going to be your calculator again, 7,500 millimeters. What do I write here? Cube. So that's a little 3 on top. Okay, so that is my volume of this rectangular prism. So which is this little shape on the left hand side. Okay, now as you can probably see, by converting that to the millimeter, I just get myself out of those 0.5 calculation. Okay, so instead of having a 0.5, we have a nice looking whole number. So that's one thing you might need to consider when you are doing those sort of questions. Remember, we were talking about this in the previous lesson. We can use any measurement unit, but some units, well, in some cases, may work better than the others. So you will need to make a choice based on the questions given. Okay, so the last one is for your challenge. The last one is for your challenge. Have a go with this one and check your answers with Fiona, and then hopefully you'll be able to find the volume of this rectangular prism. Okay, you can pause the video here and resume when you are ready. Okay, so I hope you have already completed this question. Okay, so let's have a quick review of this topic. We were talking about how to calculate the volume of a prism. So any prism has a shape that has sort of same size on both ends. Okay, and then if we want to calculate the volume of that, remember the key is to use the formula. Volume is equal to area times height. So V is equal to A times H. So if you can figure out the volume for the prism, then you would have a really strong understanding in calculating, for example, how much stuff can you put into the box, or for example, how much water can you fill into the water tank, or for example, if you're making a concrete structure, okay, how deep you will need to dig in order to fill in that 100 kilogram of weight into that little hole. Okay, so now these are obviously a very, very important section of your learning, but I hope you'll find these useful. Okay, hope to see you and wish you have a good day. See you.